Call the meeting to order, Inland Wetlands Commission for March 19th. I just want to start out by thanking Robert for filling in his chair on March 5th. And also for the record, I did watch the video of that meeting. So I'll ask Bruce to uh, call the roll, please.
Thank you. Ned Stachin,
Here.
Richard Berlandi,
Here.
David Fox,
Here.
Robert Eisner,
Here.
Neil Kelsey,
Here.
Mark Simpson, Andre Simons,
Present.
Jay Tulin,
I'm here.
and George Santos. See if Mark signs in a little late, but all right, Chair.
Okay, thank you. The first thing on the agenda is 14 Westwoods Drive. The town have a person here?
Jesse, you want to
Give us a
Sure.
quick review?
Sure, absolutely. So the town is looking to replace the existing deck with a concrete patio, which Justin will take you through the logistics for. But we're looking to expand the patio from where it exists, and for safety reasons and infrastructure, we're just looking to replace that deck with a concrete patio.
Did we get your name for the record?
Yes.
Jesse Catano, I'm the recreation director for the town of Farmington.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
Justin Stone, I'm one of the engineers for the town of Farmington. So what the plan that you see on the screen right now is just the the proposed concrete deck. It's going to replace the dilapidated wooden deck that's there now. This concrete deck is going to be pretty much set at the grade of the front door. So when it comes out, it's not going to create any sort of like grade a difference in grading or anything. It's going to be pretty flat, with the exception of maybe the edges will be feathered, just to present it nice and keep the slopes nice and even. So the concrete deck, and then there are a couple of areas where I put roof leaders. We are trying not to have the water come off of the roof and leak right onto the concrete. So we're going to put in some roof leaders to take the roof water. It'll daylight out. It's not going to be a ton of water, so it's probably going to infiltrate into the ground. But we'll be able to do that to keep water away from the concrete pad. And that's pretty much the project in a nutshell. It's pretty simple. So there's the deck as it exists now. Obviously the new deck is going to be a lot bigger. It'll expand around the shack, and allow access to the other side of it. Do we have any of the front?
Yeah, going there, walking around.
Yeah.
Right here.
We tried to take good pictures, but it was snowing. So the deck will wrap around and go to this door that you see on the side of the building. There'll be like a walkway to go there. But the main deck will be in the back. As you can see, it's pretty flat. And it'll be instead of being raised above grade like it is now, it will be flat with the grade, and then slightly sloped for water runoff.
There we go, right there.
Yeah.
There's the flat.
So-
this is a step up.
Yeah, so it's a little hard to see, but there's a step up in the patio as it stands right now. You have to step up into it. For ADA reasons, we're gonna hold kind of that finished floor elevation and just push it out. And that should keep it pretty level with the ground as well.
And the patio is being enlarged significantly?
Yeah.
Right here, and you can see on the plan. I'll show them. Here we go. If you
Yeah.
zoom, this is the existing deck right here. They highlighted it. It's that actual. You can see it faded in the back there. That's the original deck, and then this is the new patio.
Okay. And it's going to be close to grade at the ends. It'd be like a slight
Correct. Yeah, to let
grade to
water go.
drain.
Yeah, it's great to drain. And then there might be some grading around the edges of it to sort of feather out the slopes so they're not harsh. But other than that, there really shouldn't be any grading involved since we are dropping it pretty significantly. So it should just come out and not be much of a grading nightmare. It should be pretty simple.
And is that the drain pipes for the roof? Is that a corrugated, or rather a perforated pipe so it disperses the water more, or is it?
I mean, I didn't go into materials. It can be that way water isn't just shooting out of it harshly. Um, but we can talk to the vendor when Jesse meets with them about the material being used.
Yeah, it's something to consider. So you
Yeah.
have less water coming out the end that could
Mhm.
cause a problem.
Yeah, the soils are
Okay.
not that good there. That's the only thing is so they'd have to do it per the plan. I mean, per the field conditions because it is
Yeah.
wet down in this area here. So
Yeah.
Okay. Uh, let's see. So we are just determined non-significance and no site walk. Um, I guess I'll pull the commission and see if anybody has, I don't have any additional questions. Um, Dave Fox,
No questions.
Robert Eisner.
Yeah, I do have a question. As we talked about last month, it's all in the upland review. I don't have a problem with the project, but from the town's side, who is responsible for the oversight of the project? Is it the rec department or is it DPW?
Um, I mean, the rec department would probably oversee it from as a client, but we would act almost like a consultant. We'd be there during construction, and give general guidance along the way.
Okay, and the reason I ask the question is usually with town projects, we'll add a condition that because usually it's Public Works that's doing it, we'll add a condition that Public Works coordinate with the environmental staff. So if we go that route, is it still Public Works or is it rec? Who has to stay in touch with Bruce as the project moves forward?
It would be me.
Okay, good. Thank you.
No problem.
Okay, Rich Berlandy.
I have two questions. The photo showed the remnants of a canopy over the deck, and there's also appears to be a couple of air conditioning condensers that are in the location. Are those going to be relocated, or what's happening with those units?
The condensers will probably be put onto the pad. They'll be relocated. The canopy is going to go away.
Okay, so there won't be any canopy on the new deck.
No, if at some point down the road, Jesse wants to do something like that, she can always look into it. But that's kind of why we're doing the roof leaders as opposed to having this giant canopy going over the top of it. Just for water, we'll do the roof leaders, and then if for shading, if she wants to do that at some point, she can.
We'll be
Okay.
transitioning to picnic tables with umbrellas,
Right.
just for ease of use.
Okay, that's the only questions I had. Thank you.
Okay, Neil Kelsey,
No, I'm all set, thanks.
Mark Simpson, Mark might not be connecting.
no, he's not. He wasn't here.
Oh, he wasn't? Okay,
No, he's not present.
I'm sorry. Andre Simons,
Not have any questions.
okay, Jay Tulin,
No questions.
okay. And part of this, the reason for this, I guess to Jesse, is that you're getting a new operator for this, and you expect more business.
Yeah, we're expecting more business, also for the ADA compliance so that it's more accessible to people to come there. As well as during COVID, I don't know if you know, but the back side of the building was where we handed out tickets. So for if any reason we ever needed to do that for the golf, the patio would be accessible throughout.
Okay. Okay, so I will entertain a motion to approve the application with the stipulation that engineering coordinate with town staff to make sure the erosion control and anything else is in place.
So moved.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second by Eisner.
Okay. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the application with the stipulation stated, and all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye,
I,
opposed. Uh,
Hey, Ned, do I need to abstain? Because I wasn't at the last meeting, even though I heard the presentation tonight. I wasn't at the meeting and I didn't get to review anything. So I think I probably need to abstain, no?
Okay.
Well, you're not
Although
filling
I
in.
wasn't at the meeting, so maybe it doesn't matter.
No, well, we have a quorum, Jay, so there's no need to step in and vote.
Okay,
Okay? Thank
sounds
you.
good. Thank
Thank
you.
you. All right, the motion passes. All right, next item on the agenda. Calco Development, 598 Plainville Ave.
Okay? I think we have the team here. Brian, are you
Yes,
here?
yep.
Okay.
For the record, Brian Panico with Cole Civil and Survey, here representing Calco Construction. I believe David Lord, also the soil scientist, should be is on as well. So brief, and actually, Bruce, is it possible to share my screen?
Yep. Oh, no, we don't do that tree sharing, remember? So what I have is,
Oh.
I got the plans right here, so.
Okay, that's fine. So this is a R40 zone residential parcel. It's 11.6 acres. It's currently one lot with a, thank you, Bruce.
Yep.
With a house, barn, some outbuildings on it. There is a city sewer main that runs through the middle of the property that connects Tanbark Trail to the north, utilizes that, as well as the Autumn Estates to the south. To the east of the property is Plainville Avenue, and to the west is town open space. Currently the site slopes from the east to the west, so off of Plainville Avenue, all the way down across the sewer main into the wetland area below. And there are approximately 1.2 acres of wetlands on site. The proposal is, and Bruce would go to the next one there. Yep. So the proposal is to add a 20 unit single family freestanding active adult community. It'll be served off a cul-de-sac and retain 4.1 acres of open space, which is the entire extent of the wetland areas. And then that would connect to the already existing town open space to the west. The whole site as a whole be served by public water and public sewer. Obviously the sewer main running through the property for sewer, and then water off of Plainville Avenue. And we feel that this will provide a good transition of uses, as there's single family in Tanbark Trail to the north, and then condominium style, townhouse style to the south. Most of the site currently, again, to reiterate, 1.2 acres of actual wetlands. There's no actual wetland disturbance. There is 5.95 acres in that 150-foot upland review area. 2.5 acres of the upland review is actually impacted by the new development. And that's basically all the upland review on the eastern side of the wetland. The remaining upland review is pretty much the rest of the site to the west because of the 150 feet and where all those wetlands are actually situated. And there's about 1 acre of new upland disturbance. And when I say new upland disturbance, that's because currently from about unit 9 to unit 12 there, where you could see kind of the existing tree line running through. All of that land up there is actually currently kind of was the farm land, and so all of that is cleared, all that's been disturbed. And so essentially unit 9, 10, and 11, give or take, are the detention basin are the new disturbance areas. Even where we're showing that kind of existing tree line, even a little bit beyond that, it's not as much treed area as it is kind of just, kind of broken vegetation. But obviously when they put in the sewer main and made all of those connections, that area was a little bit further disturbed, even from when just the farming and everything was occurring on the site previously. So 1 acre of new upland disturbance, the other 1.5 acres of upland disturbance of our development is kind of a pre-existing condition from the farmland. And that is in essence our project. From a storm drainage perspective, we have kind of tried to reduce the actual size of our detention basin as much as possible, and put all of the unit roofs into underground infiltration systems. That's what the little boxes kind of next to each house that we're showing. So they are rather large infiltration systems. And again, intent there is, low impact development, take all of that roof water, get it back into the ground, provide some recharge there. And then the basin itself providing water quality for the road and the pavement itself before it spills over into the wetland area. This does those underground infiltration systems for the units are sized for the 100-year storm. They are providing obviously water quality as well. And I think that pretty much sums up the design portion of this. Again, David Lord, the soil scientist, is here. I know that there were some questions about kind of some of the wetland delineation, so I'm sure he'd be happy to kind of go through that portion with you.
Can I ask a construction question before we start on that? The footing drain, in the description I have, the footing drains are proposed to be sump pumps. Now, where is the sump pump going to be draining to?
So we would, I think we're basically saying we're going to discharge those at grade back to the yards so that it goes through the grass. And again, keeps as much of that water infiltrating back to the lawn areas as possible.
Okay. All right, thank you. Soil scientist?
David?
Yes,
David?
I'm here.
Good. All right.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. For the record, David Lord, Soil Resource Consultants Office in Meriden. To start, I've been looking at this property since 2003. Was the first time I looked at the property. Did some wetland delineation. Did not change from that period to what you see on the drawing set here. I am trying to find a copy of my original wetland delineation report, which seems to be playing hide and seek with me right now. But I will provide you either a copy of the original, or I will give you an updated copy with on my letterhead, which says this is the extent of wetlands on the property. You can see there's a little notation near flag, yeah, there you go, near flag 48. They reference it to a map, a previous map that talks and is dated back to 2003. The wetlands on site are wooded shrub swamp type wetlands. They have a generally southern to southwestern flow in the surface area. Some localized upland areas drain to them, and the wetlands collect and convey it through the wetland system to leave the property at the southern end of the site. That is the extent of the original and current wetland delineation on the subject property. There is a series of questions from town staff concerning the drainage that's along the northern side of the site. Appears to come onto the property in the area near there is the Tanbark Trail map of record and the wetland. There is some drainage from this wetland system down onto the subject property, and it goes into the existing wetland, delineated wetland near flag 39 in the area, yeah, right just west of flag 39. It's a well-defined swale area that when the wetlands on the Tanbark Trail property have excess surface water and surface flows, it does flow onto this property and ultimately goes into the wetlands on the property. The other area is in the northeast corner. And that is a question connection with this wetland area here. Again, on the Tanbark Trail property. Looked at this back in 2003, made some determinations. There is an existing septic system leach field in the area of building, the general area to the rear of wetland, building area 1 with discharge to the north as there is some slope gradient. The area immediately south of the wetlands that are shown on this drawing on Tanbark, the area that's on the subject property appears to have been an attempt in the very past. It was present in 2003, but there was some attempts, I think, made to try to convey that effluent discharge or water discharge from the septic system leach field into that area of this site, because there's some real mixing of the soil. There's also some very rounded gravel, which is present on the soil surface. It's not in a natural undisturbed character. This area presently has some sedge grass and some rush of grass vegetation. There are a couple of pockets of shallow surface water, which could be relating more to the more recent storms that we've had that haven't had a chance to go into the ground. I'm still in the area of trying to define and put in a report form exactly what's going on there. My 2003 impact assessment report looked at that area and was not calling that a wetland by soil type at that point. Again, identifying it as the receiving area for leaking of the septic system leach field into that area. There's also a cross culvert pipe under Plainville Avenue. You'll see it in the northeast corner. That empties onto the subject property. That area does not appear to have any connection to the soils or very little connection to the vegetation on site. It appears to be a cross culvert from the opposite side of Plainville Avenue that empties onto this property. That area, I'm in the process of defining it in more detail, and I'll provide you with photographs of the area and some designation for that area. It is outside of the, to the north of lots 1 and 2. It's to the rear of what's shown on lot 2 as an existing building. It's to the north of that and to the northeast behind the lot 1. It appears that it's within the 40-foot upland review zone limits with connection or immediate adjacency to the wetlands on Tanbar. In the event that this area is going to be called a wetland, it will connect to the Tanbar wetlands and stay within the 40-foot upland review zone limits and not affect anything going on with those two building lots.
And David, just to be clear, when you're referring to the 40-foot buffer we have?
Yes.
We have labeled as 40-foot buffer. So that's the 40 feet from the property lines, just to clarify.
Correct.
Yep.
Yep. Yes, that's two. That's a rear yard setback.
Yeah, basically the rear yard setback for those.
Okay. It says 40-foot buffer, and that's why it just
Correct. Yep.
identify it on the drawing that I'm in. It is measured in from the property line to the south. To give you a little bit of more detail, I'll be describing this in more detail in the future, but this area is very irregular in surface contours. There's some shallow, low areas. There's some ridges along the property line in this portion of the site. The property line is actually 6 to 12 inches higher than the areas on site to the south and the offsite areas on Tanbar, some of which are identified as being inland wetlands by soil type. So there is some impediment to surface flow drainage to the north, which the general contours on the subject property flow generally to the north towards the Tanbar Trail property. Does anyone have a question about the wetlands on this property and what I've identified in these two areas that the town engineer has had questions about or wanted more information regarding?
I don't have any questions at this time.
Okay. I'll just highlight, and I won't go into great detail. I also have conducted a wetland function and values assessment. It relates to the wetlands and uplands surrounding the wetlands in the far western portion of the subject property, outside of the open field areas of the site that are where the proposed development is located. It will be beyond the limits, and you see a depiction of the easternmost portion of wetland area A, which is in a existing wooded area and would be in a wooded area post-development. So the function and values assessment that I did follows protocols that are recognized and required for state level and federal Army Corps of Engineers permitting. It describes in a descriptive technique rather than a rating system the functions and values of a particular wetland that you're assessing. It doesn't generate a numerical ranking. It doesn't generate a high, low, or no value as some narrative procedures use. It does describe what evaluation criteria are present or which are not found within the subject wetlands that you are assessing under this criteria. That information is in the application, or is in my function values assessment, which is part of the application package. The process has identified 3 primary functions of these wetland resource areas. The first one is a sediment intoxicant removal retention function. The density of the vegetation, the relatively flat grades within the subject wetlands allow for sediment to filter out, be retained within the wetland that reaches the wetland system. There are no active on-site wetland sources or eroding sources that are impacting these wetlands, but this is a potential primary function for the subject wetland. The next primary value and function is nutrient removal. It's very similar in that it looks at characteristics that I've just described for the sediment filtering and nutrient removal, the density of vegetation within the limits of the wetland. The surface of the wetland is very mounded, creating micro-mounded, creating 1 to 2 foot knobs on the surface, which channels and flow, makes the surface flows through the wetland move around these surface mounds or bumps, if you will, within the wetland. There's also very dense shrubby vegetation, primarily Japanese barberry, multiflora rose. There is some silky dogwood in the area, but an abundance of root systems within the woody vegetation that can help to remove nutrients in any stormwater runoff column and trap it in the vegetation within the on-site wetland areas. The final or third wildlife habitat is a function and value for this particular piece because for the reasons that I've just been describing, but more significant is that this area of the proposed site is in direct connection to town, I believe it's land trust or conservation area that runs and connects directly to the west of this property and extends well to the north and to the south as part of the Scott Swamp wetland open space area. That elevates the functioning of the on-site wetlands well above what it would do if these were isolated wetland pockets and did not have the extent of connection to a very large wetland resource area. The basis for the evaluation conclusions are found later in the report. There's a description of each of the evaluation criteria and the values and functions as a whole. The Army Corps has provided a document which I've copied in the report that talks about each of those functions and values, which we look to see if it is present within a wetland system that we are evaluating. The one point in that evaluation that I didn't touch on, I did look at the latest listing with the Connecticut Deep Natural Diversity Database. There are no sightings of any plant or animal species on this subject property. There is, and the closest one is off-site, a little distance further to the south in a parallel along a route or the Plainville Avenue area. That's the only one that's in any close proximity to the subject property. Let me just take a quick peek at my notes to make sure I haven't, I don't think, there was a mention of the wetland flags 37 and 38 were not shown on the drawing. That is in a direct line as is shown on the drawing and right in the screen right now. 37 and 38 would be between the gap area of 36 and 39 that weren't picked up to show on this particular drawing. So again, just to confirm, the original wetland delineation was done in 2003 with the first iteration for the development of this property that I looked at, and has not changed in its configuration that is shown on this drawing from that particular time or point in time. That's the conclusion of what I have to present at this point. Again, at the appropriate time, I'll be happy to try to answer any questions that the members may have.
Okay, thank you. Um, are you done with your presentation?
Yeah, so that pretty much sums it up. We're happy to answer any questions, or go into any further detail, on any of the components of the project.
Okay, I'm having a little trouble, like, on the, what is it, the contours and utility plan?
Yep.
Which one? You want to sheet
C2.
here?
Yeah, that,
Okay.
yeah, that one. So when I looked at, the first sheet with just the original conditions, um, it's a fairly level field until you get to the sewer right away, and then it drops off a lot. Like, how much grading? It seems like you're gonna have to do a lot of grading. Do you intend to bring in fill or?
Yeah, so it would be a mixture of, basically, in some areas we are actually cutting. So essentially trying to balance out as much as we can. We will need to bring in some additional fill material, but the idea is that instead of leaving the site relatively flat in that field area, if we kind of start to do a more of a gradual grade, and work our way down toward the wetland, one that helps with, kind of producing the fill on site, needed to do the project. And then also it promotes the proper drainage around these properties. So by doing this, basically our road will come off of Plainville Avenue and more gently slope down, to where it flattens out in the cul-de-sac. And then, essentially using, lot 10 and 11 and, even more or less from 9, through 12. So 9, 10, 11, and 12. Those will essentially have walkouts, and using those foundations essentially as retaining walls, to basically make up the grade in that area. We felt as though by doing this, it made the street, more accessible. It obviously, instead of, having a relatively flat site and then a 10, 12% grade down to the cul-de-sac and then flattening the cul-de-sac out again, it made the street a little more gradual and a little more attractive. It works better from a actual, on-site material usage standpoint. And then it also delineates more or less, from a habitat perspective, for animals and whatnot. We're almost breaking, kind of the open space portion with the development portion, creating a delineation with the grading. Obviously, as David mentioned, primary, and one of the primary functions of this wetland area is the habitat portion. So by creating that separation, it keeps, kind of, again, more of a protected, so animals aren't crossing into, the developed portion and staying within that corridor, that natural corridor that already exists. And again, and so basically to kind of iterate some of those points, if you look at the map here, the darker, more bold contour lines are basically the 10-foot increments. So you have 330, 340, 320. And as you move up, looking into kind of the cul-de-sac area there, as we work our way up the road, you'll see, there's a good 20, 30 feet of cut from where the existing, 350 contour is to where the 350 contour is proposed in the road. And so that, larger cut over the width of the property, creating these swales and whatnot, was going to provide some fill, for that lower portion of the site. Thank you, Bruce. Profile kind of helps, a little bit more. So, you can see we have a general kind of cut, and we're more or less following the natural slope of the property, but just cutting away, almost as we go all the way down that cul-de-sac to produce the fill we need in the cul-de-sac and around the rest of, the units.
Okay. I'm just a little concerned about, like, how close property 10 is to the wetlands. I know you're calling out the 40-foot buffer, but generally, a lot of your buffer are going to be people's backyards. And, so they'll still be putting down fertilizers and everything else that goes along with it. So I don't know, uh, that's the one thing that I see is how close House 10 is to the space that I'm not sure I have a problem with it, but I may have a problem with it. But that's all I have for now. So I'll open it up to the commission. Um, we'll start with Dave Fox.
Um, yeah, I guess I was wondering about we don't have the total delineation of the wetlands yet because we got to check out that northeast corner. And has Mr. Lord, have you been out at the site and confirmed that not much has happened in the 22 years since you last were there?
Yes, that is exactly correct. I did find a few of the knots of the delineation. Uh, they don't have any numbers on them, so I can't define that. But they are they are coordinated within the same as is shown here. Once you move into the wooded portion of the site and come down in an area near, generally near what's shown as flag 43, the wetland is unaltered at all. All of the vegetation that I saw there in 2003 is present today. There's been no extensive amount of clearing, grading, filling, even vegetative alteration to the site. It's as it was back in 2003.
Okay, thank you. And just another quick question. It looked like 10, 11, and 12 don't have the system to do the roof runoff. Is that just because of the amount of fill that's going to be there, or
Correct.
not enough space, or what?
No, it's more or less just as you had first mentioned, the amount of fill being brought in those locations. Essentially, you'd be either the system would be, 10 feet deep because that's where we're making up all of that, or the system would effectively be like right next to the detention basin. And so then you could potentially just be bleeding, the system would just be bleeding out into the basin. And so what we did was, and I think this also goes to one of the engineering questions or the staff comments. The roof infiltration systems are designed to meet Zyro and to provide storage for the 100-year storm for all of those roofs. What we did was we just sized the basin accordingly so that the basin is sized to handle the roof runoff from those three units.
Okay, very good. And the basin itself, there will be no increase in discharge all the way up to the 100-year storm. That's right.
Yes. Yep. We are meeting Zyro. Yep.
Okay. That's going to probably be fairly important because Snowberry to the south of this, they turned out in some numbers when we were doing a Moria Road project, they were worried about increased runoff, even though they were uphill from the development. This time they're downhill. So they're going to be looking at that, I would think.
Yep.
I guess that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Robert Eisner.
Yeah, maybe I'll fast forward a little bit and I'll answer a question that we'll all be talking about later. And that's, I think this would be a good site to do a site walk. And I sort of break sequence a little bit because if there's uncertainty as to where the wetland boundary is, because it's been 22 years, if we do a site walk, it would be good to have the wetland flags from like 30 to 50 reestablished by the engineer, and then the David Lord could very easily, use those to just re-verify the findings. If we do a field walk, it'd be good to have probably the houses 9, 10, 11, the corner stake in the center line of the road. But I think this is one that would be good for a site visit to help make the determination on significance and ultimate fate of the application, decision on the application.
Yeah, I agree. I think we need a sidewalk on this. Maybe another locating also where the sediment basin is going to be, and like it's these houses at the end of the cul-de-sac there are the ones that are got me concerned. Although, there is the wetland on the other side of in the Tan Park area. So I don't know. We'll see how that is. But okay. Any other questions?
That's it for my comments. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Rich Berlandy.
I would agree about the site walk and the having the flagging done. I'm kind of wondering, and maybe Mr. Lord can answer this, is if there's any connection from the Tanbark, the western end of the Tanbark wetland to the larger wetland by was it flag 38? If there's any connection between those two.
There is some indication of surface flow. It would probably, if you're familiar with the concept of an intermittent flow or intermittent water course, that would be the descriptor that I would use. That will be flagged in the field. That'll be available for the commission during your site walk. So there is some connection as the contours show how it moves onto the subject property. It stays within what is shown as the edge of the woods post-development, and there is a swale between Tanbark and lots 9 and 8, 9, and a portion of lot 10 that directs the water coming into that area from the north and moves it in a westerly manner towards wetland area A. That will be marked out, and we could talk and look at that during the site walk.
Thank you very much. That's all I have.
Okay, Neil Kelsey.
Nothing further from me at this point.
Okay. Andre Simons.
I would agree with the site walk, and I do kind of echo the same concerns about house number 10. Otherwise, I just look forward to seeing additional information and walking the site.
Okay. Jay Tulin.
I guess maybe I have learned something in my time, because as they were talking, I was thinking sidewalk, and I'm glad that came up, because I didn't want to suggest a sidewalk and then have everyone say, what are you talking about? So I would agree on a sidewalk. Otherwise, I have no questions. Thank you.
Okay. A question to Bruce maybe, or on the Tanbark property, a little bit below the right of way for the sewer, there's a pipe, and it looks like the wetlands are going into the pipe and out of the pipe. Do you know what that's about? Or
Right here, you mean?
yeah.
That was an old, let me do this. Let me zoom out. Let me go into the development here. Oh, you know what? I have it right here. It'd be easier. What used to happen, and I've got a split screen here. So this is 2016, or sorry, 15, and then this is 24. But there was the old kennels in there, the Tanbark kennels. So there was old
Okay, yeah.
trails and paths through there. So from my last site walk on Tanbark, some time ago, that is a swale ditch stream. I don't want to define it, because I haven't been there in a while, but there were with like, uh, pipes and crossings. So the owner was able to get, was able to get across those in various spots.
Yeah,
And I think
okay.
that pipe is still there, if I'm not mistaken. So,
Okay. Well, I mean, that has something to do with the wetlands. And I mean, I just, when you look at the contours, I mean, it does seem unlikely that the wetland just ends there. And then as you continue down the slope, you know, there's that gap in between the wetlands on this property and the wetlands on that property. So I'd be interested in seeing uh, that area, if there is something to be marked off, then hopefully that'll show up. That in the other corner, the northeast corner, where the water is going underneath Route 177 and coming out in that corner, in that corner. Um, It'd be interesting to see if there's anything there. Okay. We've got all our initial questions out. It seems like we do have majority support for a site walk, so we'll have to do a site walk, and I think we'll wait for determination of significance until we do the site walk. I guess how long would it take, to get some survey, well, to get the limits of the wetlands, re-verified, and also to maybe get a line down the center line in a roadway and some of the information, I guess to the applicant.
Yeah.
What's the time on that?
We could probably have it done in a week. I would just David, are you still with us? Because David would obviously
Yes, I'm here.
Um, what does your schedule and availability look like for getting out there to kind of look at some of these things, flag some of these things additionally, maybe do because I would probably say it'll be a coordination between our survey crew and David, to be able to kind of try to get out there to, we can re-establish the locations of those flags, but obviously, like for David to be able to do some of that other additional stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can get it done towards the end of next week. I've been out and seen both. Well, I've seen all the wetland areas, and certainly the ones that I'm going to reflag. And I've also looked at and confirmed the western area where the swale is in the field, and I have a good idea where those flags are going to go. I just need a little bit more time to look in the northeast corner and determine what I'm actually seeing in the soil out there. So I can get it done next week. And then I'll coordinate with Cole's office to get the survey.
Okay. And Bruce, I mean, where are you with? I know you had some comments, but you probably will have more comments once we have a good verification of where the wetland limits are. And
exactly.
I guess
Yep.
my question
Well-
is, should we try to readdress this at the next meeting or go to the meeting after that?
Well, that's gonna be up to the applicant as well, but I mean, if they're gonna shoot for next week, we can maybe look to have a site walk either the 29th or the 30th. Our next meeting is April 2nd. So,
Okay.
timing wise, I think we wanna push this forward to get as much to get as much of our answers or questions answered as much as we can, because I have not issued any comments, any written comments as of yet, because as you can see from my agenda review, there are still a few items on there that really should be addressed before we can move forward, because some of these are very large comments and can affect other things. So I really would like to get these addressed as part of that as well. So hopefully, if we get together the 29th or the 30th, do our site walk, we'll have a better idea of a plan from there.
Okay.
David, do either of those days work for you?
Yes, I
All
can, I can be available for either day.
All right,
And I think
let's,
our office could also
All right.
comment that, so.
if I can, and I hate to do this, but I know we don't like doing it sometimes during the meeting, but it's sometimes afterwards, it's a little bit difficult, but does anybody have a preference? Or does anyone have a date either on the 29th or the 30th that they are not available?
Bruce, this is Neil. I am not available on the 29th.
Not on the 29th, okay. Anybody else?
I'm not available for the morning of the 30th, just as a heads up.
Okay,
I'm good either day.
anybody, then, does anyone have a preference? Because we have one commission member that can't do a Saturday and one that can't do a Sunday. So either way, we'll have the meeting and we'll just have to
And this
accommodate
is,
the one that can't be there.
Mr. Chairman, David Lord, I'm not available on the 30th.
All right. How about this? Do we want to try a Thursday night or something late? You know, a later evening? We could do like a Monday night. How about that? It's not, it doesn't get dark anymore, so if we can do that, does that work for everybody else?
The 31st is okay with me.
That would work for our office.
That would
Yes,
work
that
for
would
me
be
as
fine
well.
for me also.
That's okay with me.
Seems like the consensus then would be a Monday night. All right, a time? We want to do, is 5 too early or do you want to do a 6? It's gonna start getting dark, so we don't have this is
Yeah.
gonna be a bigger walk, so I think we need to meet a little earlier.
I'm
5 is
okay with
good.
5.
5 is good for everybody?
Well, it's
Yeah.
all good.
Yep.
Okay, everyone's right, no, so, all right, so I'm gonna put that down for Monday, March 30th. And we'll do
31st.
31st, and that's at 5 o'clock. All right, on site. Okay,
Okay.
Brian, just if you could do me a favor, just let the homeowner know.
Yep, we'll take care of that.
I don't want to have all these cars
Have them surprised.
pulling in. Yeah, exactly. Okay.
All right, thank you very much.
All right,
Mr. Chair, I have a comment.
Yes.
Bruce
Robert?
and Mr. Chair, I would say, this is a good game plan, but if it turns out, whether it's weather or if the professionals, the engineer and soil scientists can't get the work they need done ahead of time, we're at the very front end of receiving this application. So we do have the ability, to get some more time. I like shooting for the 31st, but if it can't be done, I personally think it would be okay to push the schedule out if we need to.
Agreed.
Yeah, we'll
Yeah,
start with the
we're-
31st and if the survey and the wetland limits can't be taken in at that time, then we'll push it one meeting. I mean, we meet every other week, so roughly. So I don't think it would be a huge imposition to just wait one more meeting if we can't get it done on the 31st.
All right, I'll send out a calendar invite for everyone and send out an email, and then we'll play it by ear.
And is there
Okay.
anything else that staff or any of the other commission members would like to see so far? I heard house corners for 9, 10, and 11. I heard the limits of the detention basin.
Mhm.
Wetland flags, probably number 35 through number 50. So that pretty much takes kind of the whole that whole edge of the wetland for us to look at. Center line of the road. And then obviously, I think what we'll probably do is maybe a couple of stakes kind of along that. Well, there is existing fence up there. Is there anything else anybody can think of that they might want to see or?
Well, I'd like to take a look at like we were talking about the area, in the northeast corner where, you know,
Yep, so we'll have,
where the outlet of the pipe is and the wetlands show up on, you know, the property to the north.
yep,
I mean, that's
you want
an
us to
area
maybe stake
to look at.
like the back of lot 1 or 2 or,
Yeah, right.
okay. Okay, and then we'll coordinate with David, obviously, to actually get flagging up and delineation of those, the ends of those wetlands as they approach the property, and we can do some borings and stuff in the field to look at that.
That would be great. Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you very much.
Bruce, you always let us know where to park because Plainville Avenue at 5 o'clock at night, just, you know, is part of the plan. Let us know where we should park.
I'm gonna think, and that's while we're here, I think if I just gonna pop it up, I'm gonna say, Dave, if you, or Brian, if you just let them know, I think the easiest and the most safest way is to just come in the driveway and we got this whole area that we can park. So as long as he
That's
doesn't have
perfect.
anything.
It's good access for cars, trucks, whatever.
Exactly. So perfect.
All right, yep, we'll coordinate with the owner. Yep,
Awesome.
Thank you.
thank you
Brian.
very much.
Thank you.
Thanks all.
Thank you.
Okay, are we ready to move on?
Give me a second to get back to that. Close out a few things. I think the applicant for the next,
Item number 3, Tungus Country Club, 87 Town Farm Road.
yeah, I just have to load it up.
Did we accept the application?
No, you didn't. Good job.
Oh my God.
Mr. Fox.
I'll make that motion.
What a good secretary. Okay, motion been made to accept the application
I'll second it.
and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Okay, motion passes to accept the application. Now we'll go on to Tungus Country Club.
Thank you all.
The applicant, ready to present?
I think they
Yes.
are on.
Okay.
Can you all hear me well?
Yes,
Can
we
hear you.
can.
Beautiful. For the record, my name is Matthew Gustafson. I'm a registered soil scientist with All Points Technology out of Killingworth, Connecticut. With us tonight as well, we have Albert Tomaso, who is the owner and operator of Tungus Country Club, as well as Brian Barrington, who is the lead facilities and maintenance manager for their properties. We are here tonight for a proposed management plan, the phase 1 of that plan for maintenance activities at their various courses and playable services for the Tungus Country Club. Go to the next slide, please. So a general location, I know you're all familiar with the location as we were here fairly recently, but to refresh everyone, the area in black is the outline of our site, which encompasses about 12 lots located at 87 Town Farm Road and 1024 Farmington Avenue. This consists of 3 courses, an 18-hole called the green course, 18-hole white course, and 9-hole red course, distributed across the entirety of this area. Generally, Route 4 forms the southern bounds of the property, the Farmington River to the east, and Town Farm Road splitting the middle of the site with courses on either side. For reference, our last application, we're talking a lot about Poplar Swamp Brook. That generally forms the northern boundary of the site and runs east, west to east, eventually draining into the Farmington River. Go to the next slide, please. So why we're here is much of the site is currently encumbered by wetland resources. In this particular location, we have 2 types of wetland resources, federal and Connecticut jurisdictional wetlands. At the state level, wetlands are primarily defined based on hydric soil indicators, consisting of poorly and very poorly drained soils, as well as alluvial soils, those soils deposited by flood activity. At the federal level, it's very similar based on 3 characteristics, being hydric soils, hydrology and hydric vegetation. The main difference here, and one I'll draw attention to the commission to, is the difference being alluvial soils. Alluvial soils, by definition, are not necessarily considered a federally regulated wetland. So in the case of this course, and the next slide will help illustrate this a little bit more. Just for reference, the picture to your top right is kind of a typical water feature, one of the ponds out on the site. And the bottom right is a segment of Poplar Swamp Brook. So let's go to the next slide because it might help illustrate some of these points on the wetland resources. So to kind of orient everybody, the Farmington River is to the top of the page, which is to the east, with Route 4 to the right of the page, which is to the south, and then Poplar Swamp Brook to the left of the page, which runs bottom to the top, eventually discharging the Farmington River, which again drains west to east. So again, the main distinction here on this site is federal versus wetland, or Connecticut wetlands. The federal wetlands are generally shaded in green areas on this map, associated with the Farmington River, your 5 open water ponds that are located interior to the courses, Poplar Swamp Brook, and several other isolated conveyance features or bordering wetlands to these features that do meet the characteristics to be considered a federal wetland. The next symbology I draw your attention to is the solid green line, and they're located kind of over in the middle of the site and extend in some other areas. It's kind of difficult to read this green line. The reason is because this demarks the Connecticut wetlands. And as you'll see, based on the 100-year flood zone, which is the little blue line at the very bottom of this page, the entire site is within the Farmington River's 100-year flood zone. And as such, there's been historic and routine flooding of a majority of all of the site, resulting in most of the soils being classified as alluvial, and therefore most of the site being considered or identified as Connecticut regulated wetlands. So it can be a little bit difficult to determine, kind of see where the green lines, but generally that green line in the middle is actually breaking out Town Farm Road and some of the maintenance area as upland areas. They're elevated, they've been filled in, they're outside of the 100-year flood generally, more or less. Similarly, as you kind of scroll to or pan to the left, those areas to the north of the country club, these parking areas, and now to your south a little bit, yeah, to your west there. Some of those areas are also elevated. If you look at an elevation map, those are elevated and outside of the flood zone. So those are also upland areas. Those are really the only upland areas located on the property. For reference, the site generally is about 364 acres cumulatively between the 12 different lots. Of that, approximately 332 acres is Connecticut wetlands. So as you can see, got a lot of wetlands on site. Everything that the golf course does as part of the routine maintenance largely occurs in wetlands regulated by your commission. So if we can go to the next slide, please. So why are we here? We're here to, again, the Tungus Country Club performs quite a few routine maintenance activities to maintain and improve their golf course. Those activities occurring within the regulated wetlands and upland review areas obviously fall under the jurisdiction of your commission. So through coordination with town staff, we were requested to develop a management plan to encompass all of those potential activities, both current and future, and develop this document for your review and inevitable approval. As you can imagine, there is a lot of activities that go into maintaining a golf course. We did our best to try to simplify, but also fully go through every aspect that they do on a daily, weekly, monthly, and yearly basis. To best portray that information, we've broken it out into a couple different categories and a couple different phases. So tonight, again, as I've already said, this is phase 1 of the management plan. For clarity, we have provided the entire management plan or the management plan in its entirety as part of the application materials, and we'll go through bits and pieces of the phase 2 components, and as well as the scheduling and what we're planning on doing for phase 2, as well as how we're going to be bringing it to the commission and the town as a future application. But again, to reiterate, tonight's focus is on phase 1, Phase 1 focuses on activities that we are considering non-regulated maintenance activities under section 4.B.2 of your town's inland wetland regulations. So if we can go to the next slide, please. Oh, and for reference, that's just a nice little picture of the course. So y'all can be jealous of how nice it is outside while we're all stuck in chairs in front of our computers. So I won't go and read your regulations to you. Obviously, we've just dealt with this. I know you guys deal with this piece of your regulations on a routine basis, but this is the exemption piece of the regulations that allows for maintenance activities on, in this case, a golf course. And again, what we are seeking tonight is there's kind of two different categories of activities that we will be including in phase 1. One is these what we're calling turf management activities, and landscaping activities that we are considering, has already been determined to be non-regulated activities. And then the crux of this phase 1 activity would be what we're calling hazard tree removal. And we'll go into a little bit more detail in subsequent slides. And again, all this information is provided. You think I'm providing a lot of detail now, there's a lot more detail in the management plan. Certainly, as you go through it, we've already gone through. If you have any questions, there'll be opportunities at the end to kind of go through whatever questions you may have. But we'll try to get through this painlessly as possible. So we'll go on to, if we can go on to the next slide, we'll get into the meat and potatoes of what this management plan is, how it's set up, what we're talking about here. So the management plan is broken into several different categories. For tonight, we're talking about turf management, landscaping activities, and portions of the tree management pieces of this management plan, with a focus really on that hazard tree removal component. As a way of kind of history on the site, a lot of the activities, obviously, they've maintained the golf course for playability, but a lot of the bordering areas, the areas that are consisting of trees, those transitional areas, have been left to overgrow in some locations. It's resulted in kind of tree overgrowth, overstocking, shading of the course. Shading is resulting in kind of some of the poor turf quality that they see on some of the bordering areas. Certainly in sidewalks where roots become a problem, that started to break apart the sidewalks, break apart the cart paths, and create issues with playability as well as the overall health and sustainability of the course. So the first step of this is what we're calling hazard trees, what they're hoping to address over the next year to 2 years before moving into this phase 2, which we'll talk about a little bit at the end. For reference, the picture to the top right is kind of a typical cart path looking towards one of their fairways. And the bottom right is a picture or a good example of Poplar Swamp Brook in some of the bordering areas that we'll talk about further on. What we're talking about when we talk about kind of some of the waterway edges or water feature edges management that they do, as well as kind of the native fescue areas that they manage. So this is a good example of what those type of areas look like currently and how they maintain them to keep them natural. In this picture, a lot of the vegetation you're looking at is jewelweed. So a good native mix in these areas that's been well maintained. You can go down to the next slide, Bruce, please. So turf management activities, I'm not going to go into this too much detail. This is what you guys expect. And again, all of this is in greater detail in the management plan provided in the application. We have details on how we're defining each of these playing surfaces, what goes on in these playing surfaces on a routine basis, what that frequency of maintenance is for each of those activities. So all of that detail is provided therein. But again, this is kind of what you'd expect on a golf course. Your greens, your fairways, your tees, your roughs, your roadsides, the driving range, and then these native and fescue areas. The activities generally include mowing, sand top dressing, and aeration. The picture to the top right is kind of what a fairway looks like after aeration. This is kind of the plugging that you see there. You've seen, I'm sure most of you are familiar with. These activities are usually completed on either a daily or weekly basis for these different playing surfaces, depending on the zone. Things like the greens, tees are completed, daily. Same with fairways, where roughs, roadsides, fescue native areas have a little bit longer frequency to their maintenance activities. I will just try to define, because I think everyone's familiar with most of these terms, and I don't think anyone would have a question on how we're defining most of them. The one I think you may have a question on is this fescue native area, how that's differentiated from the roughs and roadsides. So roughs, I think most people are familiar with, but if you're not familiar with golf, that is kind of the higher grass area that's maintained. You're looking at, somewhere between 2 to 3 inches that's maintained, a little bit denser grass, thicker grass, still within what we'd call a playable surface. What's between that and the areas that are fully unmanaged, your forested areas, your areas off the site, those types of areas. The areas in between that is what we're calling the fescue and native areas. Those are the areas that are really only maintained twice a year, mowed to a high level just to suppress woody vegetation, and just to keep them as open field, open fescue native areas. Very beneficial for things like pollinators and certain bird species, certainly a lot of your general species that like those kind of early successional transitional areas. So that's what we're calling fescue native areas. We do have a nice diagram a little bit later on that'll go into detail on kind of how we've panned out those areas in a specific location of the course. So if we can go on to the next slide. This is the next section. This is landscaping activities. Again, a lot of information here, even more information in the management plan, but this is what we're calling landscaping activities. I don't think there's going to be any surprises here. This is what we're talking about, pruning and trimming of the trees. This is an important one because where possible, the Tungus Country Club would obviously prefer pruning and trimming, as well as tree root management, which you'll see at the bottom of this page. Anywhere we can kind of pull trees back, maintain their health through maintenance level activities such as pruning, trimming, and tree root management, that is the preferred option. Again, unfortunately, because of how overstocked some of the trees are, how old some of these trees are, that is not always the option, in which case we go into the tree removal section, which will be a focus later on and is really a focus of this application. But again, pruning and trimming, tree root management, preferred option if it can be done to fix the problem with shading or growing into playable surfaces. Water feature management, I think, is another one I want to key in on. Those are your ponds, Poplar Swamp Brook, some of the conveyance features. What we're talking about here is just mowing around those edges, maintenance of them. Well, what's excluded from this, and I think we went through on the last application, is we're not talking about sediment removal. If sediment removal is needed in any of these areas, we are considering that a separate application, does not fall under this management plan. So anytime we need to go in, if we need to do any physical work that alters the grading or the drainage of any of these features, that would be a separate special application we would bring to the commission, and it would not fall under this management plan. Everything else in this, I think, is fairly kind of things you'd be more familiar, you expect on a golf course, maintaining the typical use of a golf course. I'll make mention of the plant protecting application as well as water usage. In these sections, we're talking about areas of maintenance activities that the state actually regulates on the golf course. In the case of the plant protectants, we're talking about fertilizers, fungicides. They do maintain their pesticide applicators and supervisor licenses with the state. All those are regulated by the state's pesticides management program, which they routinely report to and have to follow all of their protocols. Water usage is very similar. They obviously have a irrigation system that's used throughout the course, which draws from their ponds. Because it's on the Farmington River, all of this is regulated by the Connecticut Deep Water Diversion Program. Again, they have to report. They are highly regulated on how much water they can take. So all of those are superseding authorities at the state level. And this is a nice little picture. Again, this is the picture on the bottom right is a great example of how they maintain their edges around their ponds. This would be kind of an area considered, native fescue, these areas bordering a pond. Obviously, there is some tree growth. You can kind of see some of the golden weeping willows in the background that are left to maintain, but this is kind of how they typically would maintain their edges around these waterways to keep them from overgrowing, but also allow for a native transitional zone between the playing surfaces, which you see in the picture right of the fairway, and into the waterway. So if we can go to the next slide, please.
Nat, it looks like Neil had a question.
No. He stepped away for a second just to grab his cord. He's good.
Good enough. So this is out for reference. This is kind of a little diagram we put together to hopefully help illustrate the differences in these zones. This is probably the area of the course that even if you don't golf, everyone's familiar with. This is the location that's right on Route 4, where Route 4 meets Town Farm Road. For reference, obviously, Farmington Ave, Route 4 is on the bottom of the screen to the south, and then Town Farm Road's to the right here. The driving range is in that pink box to the top right, or top left, excuse me. You can see some of the call outs here. So greens, fairways, tee boxes, things that I think everyone would be familiar with. Where I would, draw your attention to is what we're calling, the roughs and roadsides versus the fescue native area. So by way of memory, I'm sure some of you remember when this fescue native area was cleared, and there was a subsequent application that they put in between you guys and the Texas Country Club. This is the area we're talking here on Route 4. This is now maintained as a fescue native area. Again, I'm sure you've all seen it driving down Route 4. This is the area that they maintain generally, 2 times a year, just to keep it open and clean, both for aesthetic reasons, but also to maintain this early successional habitat type zone that is so beneficial to species like your pollinators and to your early successional birds and small mammals and things of that nature. The major difference obviously between that and the roughs and roadsides is your frequency of maintenance. Your roughs and roadsides are being taken care of on about a weekly to bi-weekly basis. Those are those areas, as you can see in this light green, just above and between the driving range of the fescue native areas. Those are the areas bordering your cart paths, just outside your fairways, things of that nature. Again, these kind of orange lines indicate those areas where your typical landscaping activities occur. These are these tree lines that are maintained. Both pruning, tree root management, in particular bittersweet management. I know pretty much everyone in the state has issues with it. Texas Country Club is no exclusion to this pervasive problem. So a lot of bittersweet management and things of that nature. This water course that's called out, this is kind of the deviation from what your typical open water features are. These are these conveyance features. Probably if you were formally classifying them, you consider them intermittent water courses. They do have defined bank and channel, but they have highly ephemeral flows. There's no perennial flows in these types of features. Historically, they're constructed or channelized, and they're really just functioning as stormwater conveyance features at this point. We can proceed to the next slide. If we've already gotten to the meat and potatoes, this is the stake of our application here. This is our tree activities. This is what we're talking about in phase 1. This is the focus of what we're asking for tonight, which is that these activities are considered unregulated under that provision of your inland wetlands and watercourses regulations. So what we are looking for here is 2 distinct categories of tree removal and the procedure that we were proposing to remove these dead and dying trees. So the 2 distinct categories, nothing crazy here. They're the dead trees that are already dead and the ones that are in poor health that are either soon to be dead or at risk of failing. In either case, they are safety risks to the patrons. They are the type of trees that at any given moment can either drop a limb or drop the entire tree and cause risk of damage to the course or to the patrons. So obviously have a pretty substantial need associated with the removal. Again, because of that, this is their focus on getting this course up to speed is these hazard tree removals. For reference, the picture to the right is what we would consider a dead tree. I think most people would probably consider a dead tree. And a picture in the bottom left is a good example of some of the shading effects. The sand trap is to the top right. All that sand you see in the bottom, that is not a sand trap. That is not intentional. That is because the sun gets shaded out. Currently, it's a nice time of the day to see some sun on it, but that's what's causing this turf dieback in this area is some of the shading. So you can see, and this is pretty pervasive throughout the course. The USGA has, and we'll go into this greater detail when we deal with the phase 2 portion of this project, but the USGA has a service that rates and evaluates courses and provides them recommendations. Their report that was performed last year and provided this year had an emphasis on the overstocking of trees, the overshading, and the resulting poor quality of some of the bordering turf, and the resulting dieback in some of these locations. But again, to reiterate, we're not really going into that for this particular application. What we're really looking for tonight is this phase 1 activities, which is these dead and dying trees. So if you can go to the next section. Dead and dying trees. How are we defining them? The dead tree we're defining as anything with 90% or more of the crown dead. This is the ones that a monkey could identify. You look at them, they're dead. There's nothing left to them. Maybe there's a little bit of bud growth left, but they're not surviving, and they're at immediate risk of falling over or dropping a limb, and causing problems with either the playability of the course or actual hazards to the patrons and staff of the course. Poor tree health, or poor health trees are considered anything with 60% or more of the crown dead. Also, you were talking about diseased trees or anything with significant limb failure. So we're talking, these other two kind of qualifiers. Gypsy moth comes to mind when they've come through. There's not a lot of oaks on this course, or that's what we're talking about. There's a specific forest pest or pathogen that's come through that's destroying a tree. A lot of times that'll present as a limb dying off. And if you have these large leaders that are at risk of falling, then sometimes the only way to deal with that from a safety perspective is to remove the whole tree. Because you can do a lot of trimming, but if you're going to trim off enough of it that you're going to compromise the integrity of the tree, then you're just causing a future problem. So we are considering these as well in those immediate kind of category of needing to be removed. You can go to the next slide, Bruce, please. So how are we doing it? What are we proposing for this hazard tree removal process? First would be that the Tungus Country Club maintenance staff would identify all of the, and are currently in the process of identifying the trees that fit into these two categories. Pending the approval or pending the determination that these are considered unregulated activities, what they would be doing would be identifying those of greatest need over the next season to year to 2 years. There's obviously quite a few, so it may not be able to be done immediately, but it'll certainly be occurring over the next year, with an emphasis on these trees. Primarily using hand clearing in the case where the trees, because they're either close to sensitive resources like the road or what have you, there may be need for small vehicle or small vehicle assistance, whether that's man lifts to help cut it down in pieces, cranes if during the very large trees, and obviously some of the other smaller low pressure vehicles like wood chippers and bobcat, things of that nature to remove the material. In the cases where any of these, and then stump grinding to remove the stumps. In any cases where the soils are disturbed during this process, they'll be restored. In the cases of in a playable surface like the edges of a rough, it'll be restored in kind with the rough. In the cases of these kind of adjacent areas, whether you're already in the wooded area or you're in a native fescue area, it'd be restored in kind with those, whether that's native fescue and a conservation seed mix would be used, or in the case of within a forested area, which would be stabilized with just some mulching, where we wouldn't expect a lot of grass grow back to occur, would be the proposed methodology. We've coordinated, we met with town staff, we met with Bruce and Shannon, and one of the concerns and comments that we got during this process was, well, how do we track this? How does the town ensure that what we are saying is dead and dying has been completed? How do we do that? And what we've come up with is a maintenance of a logbook where Tungus Country Club would, again, go around to this initial step, identify all the trees by location and their category and the number of those trees in that location, and maintain a logbook. So you'd have this tree here. This is in the picture in here, you have a dying tree. And maybe this is on red course, hole 15. So the logbook would read, we're on red course, hole 15, one dying tree. And it would be maintained, and when it was removed, the date of removal. That logbook would be maintained year long and then provided at the end of each year to the town so that you guys have a record of all of this dead and dying tree material that's been removed from the course. All right, we can go on. If we can go on to the next slide, please. That's all phase 1. What we're asking for tonight is the determination that all these activities are considered consisting of non-regulated activities under, again, that exemption section of your regulations. There's also a piece of the management plan that we're not going through tonight, which is this phase 2. The plan is to bring this to the commission at a future application. There is a little bit more complexity to phase 2. There's a little bit more sensitivity to phase 2. In discussion with town staff, we felt it prudent to break out these 2 sections. For one, for ease of understanding, there's a lot of information here. There's a lot of complexity, to make it a little bit easier to review, as well as this phase 2. We're moving into a nice season of the year to review this stuff. So one of the things that we talked about and we'd like to offer up is that when we do go for this phase 2 application, we would like to voluntarily schedule a site walk. You have to work out with Albert if you're allowed to bring your golf clubs afterwards, but we'll, intentionally schedule it on a nice day. We can review the course. There's obviously a lot of area here. No one's expected to walk. I believe Albert will be preparing to have some nice assistance with some golf carts, some very nice golf carts from what I've heard. So we can get around the course and see a lot of these areas, see a lot of this phase 2 work. To very briefly go into it, the phase 2 are these areas where we're talking about tree removal that's not dead and dying. These are the areas that are overstocked, that are just shading out areas. The trees are healthy, they're fine, but they are causing a problem with the course. Whether it's the tree roots are lifting up the cart paths, or the limbs are hanging out so much over the tee boxes that they're causing problems with the playability of the course. Golf balls are hitting them or shading out the turf and causing health problems. So there's no immediate need besides the playability of the course. And again, the sensitivity is obviously we have a number of sensitive resources, the greatest being the Farmington River. So we've broken out some of these phase 2 areas into management areas to help delineate the types of proposed clearing that'll occur. And the easiest way we thought of doing that is to walk the areas and show in person kind of the different zones, the different management areas we're talking about. So again, tonight focusing on phase 1, but phase 2 will be coming down the road in the next couple months, and we'll be looking to schedule a site walk so that you all can see kind of what we're talking about for this phase 2 portion of the site. In addition, I know we had briefly talked about the irrigation system at our last application. We're still under the process of reviewing and planning for a future irrigation system upgrade. That is not currently included in this management plan. It'll be a separate application that we bring to the commission as a complete separate application. So I'll read it one more time. Just phase 1, all we're looking for tonight is a determination that the removal process and methodology for the hazard trees, the dead and dying tree removal, would be considered a maintenance item that's exempt under the inland wetland regulations. And by way of reference, this is a nice little picture of the Farmington River over the summer when it was barely more than a stream, never mind a river. So I'll go to the last slide, and certainly I would welcome any questions that the commission may have. Certainly if at this time, if Albert or Brian has anything, comments that or additions they'd like to make before opening that up. Otherwise, I thank you all for your time and happy to answer any questions.
I'd like to quickly introduce my partner, Brian Barrington, in Alliance Golf, which oversees Tunxus, 4 courses in Connecticut and 1 in Massachusetts. He's been quiet so far, but he has a whole career of experience in agronomy, multiple licenses, and he also works closely with Steve Onofrio, our on-site superintendent who lives right here on Town Farm Road, who's also a trained agronomist and holds multiple licenses. So we're fortunate to have a lot of, in addition to the excellent expertise from Matt on the outside, a lot of talent in-house, and we take this all very seriously. And thank you for your consideration tonight.
Okay. Thank you for your presentation. Bruce, the idea of the log book, is that, I mean, did that come up? Did you guys work that up together? Are you satisfied with that? Or, I mean, I would think you'd want something maybe electronic that could, you could get permission to go into it and check on it intermittently or something.
Yeah, either that or it could be or like a map just writing, just have a course map with dots on it or something like that. But the concern we had was that we didn't want to have to be called every time they want to trim a tree or cut a tree if it was like within those limits as we're discussing here, within the uh limits of the course area. So we didn't want to have to go out every time and say, yeah, that can be cut, this can be cut. So it was trying to find a way that we could both reach a happy medium.
Okay, and now Matt, you said that as part of this phase one, you were going to like identify dead or unhealthy trees all in one shot, and then over the course of 2 years, gonna take them down. Is that, I mean, would you be able to do that and then provide that to the town?
Yeah, I think the plan and what we had discussed with Bruce in our staff meeting was there's two components to this. The first being that there is a lot of dead and dying trees that need immediate removal. There's so many that it's not something we're going to accomplish in a couple months. So we're generally, expecting it to take within the next year to 2 years. So there's an ability to, obviously, those are existing dead or dying trees. Those can be identified. So I know Albert's and Brian's staff are going through and identifying those, kind of what Bruce is talking about, marking them up on a map, locations, numbers. And I think once they're completed with that, I'll call it a survey. It's not truly a survey, that inventory is probably the best term for it. That will be provided to the town of, hey, this is where we're at present day. There's also a component of this is the management plan moving forward. This is, while it's still a living document that I'm sure will provide some revisions, this is what Tungus Country Club is beholden to at the town level, in perpetuity. So there will be other future trees in the coming years that will move into that dead and dying category. So we want to make sure we not only have the record of what's there today, but also a process in place in the future of, hey, we came back from the spring or the winter this year, and maybe there's bad X pathogen that came through and wiped out these 3 trees in this location. And to Bruce's point, we don't want to go back to them every single time, say, hey, Albert identifies that comes back, they've got an event in 2 weeks and these trees are right near there. They want to have the ability to remove the immediate hazard while also keeping the town informed of what's going on so there's a record. So that's really the intent.
Okay. All right. Well, as long as Bruce and the town staff are satisfied. I mean, we're not the ones keeping track of it, so I would, I'm comfortable leaving that up to something. If you're comfortable, working with Bruce and coming up with a solution that works for everybody, then that's fine. Um, as you say, this phase one is a little more clear cut and reasonable. We can go into phase two at a future date, but I think that, what you're talking about seems like, regulated activity, and that, as part of the normal operations of the golf course. Or no, did I say regular? I mean non-regulated. But let me see how the commission feels. We'll start with Dave Box.
I don't have any questions, and it seems like it does meet the definition of a non-regulated use.
Okay. Bob, Robert Eisner.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a few questions. First, thanks to Albert and Matthew for putting together such a comprehensive plan, and I really like the proactive approach. I think it's going to work out well for the golf course and for the town staff as well. Certainly, the golf course is a resource, and it's entitled to some of the exemptions. I agree with the vast majority of the approach. I do have a couple of questions. Amongst the licenses that your staff holds, Albert, are they arborist licenses included?
Brian, I'm going to let you answer that.
No, we don't have a certified arborist on staff. But we do use, if we go to a large scale, you know, group of trees out, we certainly have a tree company with a licensed arborist come in and advise on that aspect, that tree is good, just trim it up or whatever the case may be. But um, I've been a agronomist for 30 years, and I've identified a lot of trees that are dead. So I think that's where our focus is now. But to answer your question, we do not have a licensed arborist on staff.
Okay, but I also recognize that your agronomist certification, falls into that same area. And I ask that question simply because I know the arborists have set standards for determining hazard trees, and I completely agree that if you do, and I'm sure you do amongst the vast area that the golf course encompasses, if there are hazardous trees, and those absolutely need to be managed as quickly as possible in the interest of public safety. I just wanted to get a little clarification as to how that determination would be made, so I appreciate the answer. I think that the majority of the work that you cover does fall within the exempt activity. I think one area that may not would be if you are going to be stump grinding within a mapped wetland. I think the removal of the tree, I'm absolutely comfortable with that being, an exempt necessary management activity, but I think the stump grinding in a wetland area, not the buffer area, but a wetland area, may fall outside of the scope of the exempt activity. But if that is the general consensus by the commission, then hopefully we can find a quick and easy way for the maybe a slightly higher level of interaction with the town staff to occur when you are stumping. And with stumping, what is the management of the material that's generated? Because typically when you grind a stump, you end up with a little bit of a lump. So if you're planning on leaving the lump where it is and it naturally is going to degrade, then that's fine. But if you're going to be removing some of the stump grinding, is that being managed elsewhere on the golf course?
I'll tee you
So
up,
I'll pause
Brian.
here.
I
Okay.
think that's probably most suited to your response.
Go ahead, Matt. You got something?
Sorry, I said just teeing you up, seeing if those.
Oh no. So yeah, we have a waste site that we use, and we use it for compost, and can use it in the flower beds around the property. And then we stump it. We would stump it subgrade and then topsoil and cedar sod it, depending on where it was located on the property.
Okay, thank you. And then on the reporting, I do like the idea of an electronic log or whatever, but I do think it would be good if this is not included, and that is just to have a photo documentation along with you're making the infield assessment, you're using sort of these ground rules that we're all agreeing on. But I think just a simple photo documentation verifying that it was a hazardous tree would just help bolster the information that's being retained. Since there's going to be considerable amount of time after the fact when the town staff would be reviewing that. So that's just an additional comment on, maybe bolstering the log a little bit. And then hopefully there's some sort of ground rule in the overall plan that, if there is a question about whether it falls in the scope of the pre-established management plan, if there's a question that the town staff would be consulted. And then the last comment I have is just an apology for all of the golf balls that are left behind in my poor play. End of my comments.
Appreciate it.
I think we call those incidental, Phil, Mr. Eisner. I think that's quite all right.
Along with the stump grinding, I've seen demonstrations of some recent equipment where it's actually like a drill that tapers out and it drills into the stump and it breaks it apart, and it's less sawdust, and it just kind of makes it into more wood chunks as it breaks apart the stump. And so that's another thing to consider. Let me continue with the commission. Neil Kelsey.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, just I welcome this. I think it's a great idea. Just help my perspective a little bit because there was a lot of cutting, I think before last season, in particular along the first tee on the green between there and the 18th. And then again on, I think it's number 3, behind number 3, going up to the par 3 core where the gazebo is. Can you tell me a little bit about what drove that and how that dovetails into phase 1?
Albert, are you familiar with
Yes,
what I'm talking about? Would you be able to?
I am. Yes, yeah. No, those are exactly the areas identified. So that falls into what would now be considered phase 2, and this Shannon and Bruce have talked to us about some intermittent tree cutting in the past and the need to have an overall plan. And then when we deal with those, any live trees or in particular larger areas of trees, needing to come in and talk to them each time we would want to do something like that.
Okay, so that was if that was phase 2, then that was not dead and dying. That was more playability. If I'm
Brian,
understanding that
maybe you
correct.
could speak to it more. I mean, they're not all healthy, right? They're overgrown. There's too many in close proximity, in addition to shading, roots, and turf health. So they're definitely a nuisance. But in this plan, it would fall under phase 2.
Was Brian going to add anything to that, or I'll move on?
Yeah, it was one of those locations where there was some dead, dying trees in there, and once you get in there, the trees that were remaining were unhealthy, and it was a turf condition area between the cart path and the green. So the idea was to transform it into a fescue kind of native area.
Okay. And again, I'll reiterate that I think, having a plan like this in place is a great idea, working with town staff, and work closely with them so that, all the channels of communication are open on whatever cutting is going on. Finally, I'd also, I'll offer up my opinion on some dead and dying trees if you'd like to take it into phase 1.
We would.
Okay. The overhanging one on the par 3 on red that pushes a lot of my balls into the river. But, so that would be one. Anyways, kidding aside, I think this is a good plan, and look forward to working with you going forward.
Thank you, and we'll
Thanks,
reschedule
everyone.
in for you for that site walk, Mr. Kelsey.
Okay.
Rich Berlandy?
I don't have anything to add. I would agree this is a good idea. Thank you.
Okay. Andre Simons?
I would also agree that this is a really good idea. Thank you for the comprehensive presentation, and I don't have any questions.
Thank you.
Very good. Jay Tulin?
He stepped out around
Okay.
8 o'clock. He texted us.
Okay. All right. So Bruce, what are you looking for in regards to do you want us to take a vote that this is a non-regulated expected activity, or as part of the maintenance of the course, or
Yeah.
phase 1?
Yep, definitely. I'd like to, like I said, if we all agree, then we could vote that it is that it does fall under the geez, the permitted non regulated use. So,
Okay.
all right.
All right. So I'll entertain a motion that
Mr. Chair,
confirm
can I
that
ask one more question?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. Albert and your team, I did have one more question I forgot to ask. Was this plan, is it sort of modeled after guidance from the golf course industry, or is it something that's recognized? Are there any endorsements, or did you, sort of create it all from scratch? I'm hoping that it's sort of a standard, standard practice type thing.
So I'll start the answer. I'm sure Albert can provide some additional information, but with practice, Tommaso's courses have a kind of a general maintenance plan that they use across their different various courses that includes their various activities. That's obviously was originally tailored for maintenance staff. It has nothing. It was not tailored to wetlands or floodplains or the particulars activities in those areas. So really, what we did was use that as a framework, and then add in the details and what we thought were the the pertinent and the regulatory purview sections of those maintenance activities, and beef up those sections, provide details to those sections, provide protocols and standards to those sections as it relates to in this case, the specifics of this course and its relation to the Farmington River and the Farmington River floodplain.
Yeah, and I guess where I was going is like, is it endorsed by, is it consistent with standard practices within the golf course industry?
So did I go? So that's where the USGA comes in, right? It's every property's different. And Tungus is a case where it was overplanted and turf conditions are suffering, and there's other things that take maintenance and money to repair, like car paths and root encroachment. And the USGA goes out and does these turf advisory visits, and looks at all those things, property specific, and kind of, they don't want to go in there and take all the trees out. They don't want to, plant more trees. They want to make sure there's a good balance between, the business, the turf quality, and the wildlife, and the trees and all the other shrubs and landscaping that goes on a golf course. So I hope that answers the question, because is there a standard? Yeah, that's kind of it, as property by property.
Bruce, any
Yeah,
chance you could?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Any chance, Bruce, you could pull up the USGA portion of the management plan, just to sort of show what Brian's talking about? And then, Mr. Eisner, another way to answer the question is that our actual maintenance portion of the maintenance plan evolved from Brian and another gentleman who works for us, Aaron, works with us, Aaron Shaka, their previous work with Billy Casper Golf. And that was the evolution of what was called a course success plan. And this is the maintenance section of that course success plan that gets into a whole number of other standards, including customer service and golf regulations. But this section then was taken from that. And then Matt helped us drill much deeper into it, expanding the focus on the wetlands, the soil science, and the agronomy.
Thanks, Albert. That was sort of the answer I was looking for. That, yeah, it's sort of modeled after standard industry practices, and you know the industry very well, so that's, you answered the question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Does anybody else have any additional questions?
If you're looking to pull that up, Bruce, it's attachment A. That'll be right after the mapping in the back.
Page 21.
Yeah. My apologies for the file size. I wanted to include the full USGA report, and they take a lot of pictures.
Right.
It's almost, by the time you finish reading the report, it's almost like you played the course. You probably play the course faster than looking through all the pictures, if I'm being honest.
Is this what you're looking for, or what are you looking?
Yes, so I just wanted to show them the extent of the report from USGA and the standards that they took evaluating the course.
Okay.
A lot of this will play more into phase 2, but we're just showing the extent of which we're researching it at this point and the standards that we're following. I think that probably gives everyone an idea.
All right.
And if I may, to address, I think one of the, and I'm not sure, apologize which of the commission members, but I can speak on behalf of Tungus. I think they'd be more than willing to provide, a photo document element to an e-log book, something that, and we can, if we want to make that a condition of the approval, that will coordinate with town staff and provide it in whatever form and completeness that Bruce would like. I think they'd be more than willing to meet that standard, whatever we can work out with Bruce that he would desire.
Well, I'll leave it, we'll just say that, the application is to, uh, meet the requirements of the town staff. And you guys, I don't want to get too detailed in it because it might change and it might, you might, as you start out on this process, you might decide something works better than something else. So, we'll just say that, the electronic log, should be done to, and provide access to the town staff and, uh, requirements.
Thank you.
Is
That's
that,
that,
is that
that
right with you, Bruce?
Yep, that's fine with me.
Okay. All right, so then, I'll entertain a motion that,
Mr. Chair, I'll
the,
take a stab at it.
all right, thank you.
Uh,
You're good
I
at this.
propose that we approve the phase one activities as exempt under the statutory allowance, with the exception of stump removal in wetland areas. This is not the alluvial or upland review area, but the wetland areas only. And that the plan be subject to ongoing dialogue and modification with the town staff for items such as including a photo log in the reporting documentation and other similar activities.
If I may provide a point of clarification, I believe you mean the federal wetlands. Is that accurate to your motion?
It would be, and Bruce can help on this, we only regulate the state wetland by soil type. So I'm trying to just say, the area that is the actual mapped wetland by soil, but not all of the alluvial soils, because obviously that's the majority of the site. So the upland review area and the alluvial soils would not be subject to that condition.
Okay, that is how we are defining the federal wetlands. So I believe we're talking about the same thing and two different sides of the same coin. Thank you.
Great. Bruce, are we good on the dialogue, or is there
Yeah,
a
I'm
point that you'd like to?
I'm making notes as we go. So gotcha.
Okay, but Bruce, you think we're all on the same page?
Yes, I think so. So
Okay, then I
That sounded
appreciate,
good.
Matt, I appreciate the assistance to clarify the motion.
Okay,
Second?
all right, motion's been made and seconded. I think that, Robert, once again, did very well at detailing the motion. Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstain? Okay, the motion passes. Thank you very much for your very thoroughness of the presentation and explanations, and I thought it will be helpful to both, the golf course and the town.
Well, appreciate all your time tonight, and we'll see you again in the near future. So thank you all.
Very good.
And Matt and Albert, on on stump grinding in the wetlands, I'm not opposed to that activity occurring. I don't think it falls within the exemption. So I think, you will be able to work with Bruce and the staff on, what the most expeditious way to undertake that activity would be.
Understood.
Yep, I think we can address it during the phase two as well. We'll kind of revise that a bit to make sure that's specified under that phase two of activities. So no, it was a good point, and we appreciate your thoroughness.
Thank you, gentlemen. Good luck with the season.
Thank you
Thank
all.
you.
Have a
Thank
good
you.
evening.
Thank you.
thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Bruce.
Right.
Okay. Next on to the planners report and our, modifications.
I do have two
Seven.
things. Yeah, I do have one thing if you don't mind first.
Oh, sure.
Quick little thing, we realized yesterday that the mapping that we had for that the swale project that we want to do down
Avians?
in the flats,
The Gabions?
Yep, the Gavians. We had it was incorrectly depicted which swale it was. The pictures, everything we discussed in the pictures were right, but they had it labeled here. It's actually further down in through here. So, all right. So that just how things changed. It's still the pictures that you had, the dimensions we had, everything was correct except for this one map that actually showed it as being that swale there. All
Yeah,
right.
I just to add a comment. So they're gonna make the or place the Gabions in that area, but not have a channel. It's just the Gabions and filled with stone, or
Yes, it'll be a Gabions with stone, and they'll be up on the sides. It's going to be it'll be more or less like a it will be like a channel of Gabions through there to funnel that water through there because it's if we they went out there today to start planning for it, and just that 1 inch of rain that we had on Monday ripped the whole path right through the fields
yeah,
and eroded this whole road out again. So they want to make sure they get this thing in to pretty much prevent this from occurring. So
yeah.
on a constant basis. Again, it's I think as I said, this is going to be a trial. We
Yeah.
told the commission we're going to try this out, see how it works. We don't want to get too crazy with it. If it works, then we'll come back for one other one down here, and we may have to come back and hit this one. We'll see how that one's doing.
Yeah, we use DOT uses a lot of Gabions, but I've never seen them used like that in regards to, as the channel change, the channel migration, in order to stop the channel migration on curves and stuff that will put them in there. They seem to work well. But in regards to just expecting the water to flow through it, and in sandy soil, sometimes all those voids in between the stones fill up.
If they
And
could, but
and
I think the velocity is what's going to be going right through there. You're going to get a lot of high
yeah,
velocity running right through and over that stone. So,
well,
all
we'll see
right,
how this one works.
okay.
Okay.
But
Yeah, there's still filter fabric.
yeah, exactly. So, all right, and the other one that we have is the. Why is this acting up on me now? Here we go. This is crazy. Oh, we gotta move this. Got so much stuff on the screen here. And then here's I can't open things up today. Why can't it? There we go. So here's the section from the regulations. All right. Let me go down to the end here. So as we discussed previously at the meetings, section 7 of the regulations under the decision procedure, it does have a requirement that the commission shall submit all applications involving significant activities to the Farmington Conservation Commission and may submit applications to any other commission or organization which may undertake additional studies or investigations. So just looking to redact this conservation commission because you guys are one and the same. So it saves a step of having to go through the conservation commission. So I was gonna start making those changes, get those over to DEP. I opened it up if anyone else had anything else that they remember dealing with all these applications, if they wanted us to look at as well. If not, I will move ahead with these.
So you're just gonna take that out completely?
Yes. Well, no, not the whole set, but just take out the
Just
conservation.
the high, the
Exactly.
fact
Yep.
that, yeah, we have to submit applications to the Conservation Commission.
The same board, you don't want to.
Because we're the same people, yeah.
Exactly. So. All right.
Makes
Just,
sense
do
to
you
me.
wanna, state it that the commission, may submit applications to the Conservation Commission and any other, et cetera? Just so you don't have to reopen this if at some point down the road they are separate commissions.
Not a bad idea.
Say that again?
So
Just-
change shall to may. So the commission may submit all applications involving significant applications to the Conservation Commission and any other commission or organization.
Oh, all right, yeah. I guess that works too.
Yep. Okay. We'll talk it over. We'll go from there. All right.
Okay. Hey, let me ask you a question. What, in that second part, quasi-government agencies, is that like Farmington Land Trust or Farmington River Watershed Association or something like that?
You mean they submit applications to any
Yeah.
other commission or organization? Yeah.
No, yeah.
Yep. I guess so. Yeah, that's saying that you can, you could ask if let's say we were deeding this over, if they suggested that open space be deeded to the open space and maybe it or to town of Farmington and maybe it abuts Farmington Land Trust. So maybe we thought we should bring the Farmington Land Trust involved on this because they abut it and maybe it becomes Farmington Land Trust. So just bringing them in and discuss and having them be part of the application and being able to comment
Okay.
application. So,
All right. I just want to understand that a little better. Okay.
all right.
Uh, do we have consensus? Or do you want me to poll? Or is
I'm
everybody
just,
in?
if anyone has anything, raise their hand or what is it? Or,
Speak now or forever hold
yeah,
your
speak
peace?
now or forever hold your peace, that kind of thing. So, all right. If anyone has it, if anything pops to anyone's mind afterwards, because I know it's getting late and your mind's probably getting clouded, but just shoot me an
Yeah.
email. All right, and we can go over it.
Okay.
That's all I had.
All right. So you're
Yeah.
gonna, this has to go to deep.
Yep, it has to go through deep. They have to approve it, get it back to you guys. We'll have to schedule a hearing, have a hearing, and then once that's done, they would then become
Okay.
uh public. So, all right.
All right. If I need to get some sleep, I'll start reading the regulations again and see if I can come up with anything.
Oh,
All right. Uh, so now we need to approve the minutes of March 5th. The Inland Wetlands Commission. Chair will entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved by Eisner.
Seconded.
Okay, motion is made and seconded. To approve the minutes, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstain? I'll abstain. I was not here. Motion passes. And we will end Inland Wetlands Commission at 9:09 and start in with Conservation Commission. Call the meeting order at 9:09. Any new business?
none.
None. Planners report?
None.
Okay, Chair entertain a motion to approve the minutes of March 5th.
So moved by Eisner.
And a second, please.
Seconded.
Okay, motion's been made and second to approve the minutes. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstain? I will abstain. Motion passes. Does everybody have anything else? Okay, thank you very much for your time. And we'll see you we'll see you in a little over 1 week. You're gonna send out a notice about
Yep,
the
I'll send out a calendar invite and
okay.
that way it's in everyone's calendar and then I'll wait to hear from the engineer. Like I said, I know we have plenty of time, but there's a lot of comments that I personally have that I think need to be addressed before we can move ahead. So this
Yeah.
could be a lengthy application and I just want to make sure we're pushing to keep it going. Is all.
Yeah, well, I mean, to Robert's point, it's like it's not just that they have the time to set up uh the survey markers and
Agreed.
you also need time. I mean, because we're very dependent on your comments,
Mhm.
from the agenda review. So we have to make sure you have time to properly review the stuff.
Exactly. Okay,
Yeah, the 31st works great, but if more time is needed, then, I just want to,
definitely.
start that it's not going to raise any angst or at the front end of the process.
Okay.
Perfect. Okay,
Hey, Bruce, do you have time for a non-wetland related question after the meeting?
yeah, go ahead.
Great.
You want to call or you want to stay on, or you want to call?
Yeah, no, we can close the meeting and I'll ask you the question.
Okay, that
All
sounds
right.
good.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody.